Today, we are going to follow the money to try and deconstruct one of the most disturbing financial empires of our time, Jeffrey Epstein's. It's a story packed with immense wealth, hidden power, and a question that honestly still haunts a lot of us. How in the world did he pull it off?
So get this. When Jeffrey Epstein died in 2019, his estate was valued at an absolutely staggering $600 million. And we're not just talking about cash in a bank account. No, this was a global empire of assets. Everything from a $77 million mansion in Manhattan to his infamous private islands down in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
And that really is the central mystery, isn't it? How does a college dropout, a guy with zero formal financial training, manage to build a fortune on that scale? Well, the answer isn't some single brilliant stock pick. It's a calculated, methodical climb that started way, way before he ever set foot on Wall Street.
So let's start at the beginning. We're going to trace Epstein's early years, his journey from a high school classroom all the way to the trading floors. And you'll see, this was not your typical career path. Every single step was a calculated move to get closer to power.
You know, his climb really started in a place you'd never expect. Back in 1974, he's a math teacher at this super elite Dalton school. This gave him direct access to New York's financial royalty through their kids. By 76, that connection lands him a job at the investment giant Bear Stearns. And get this, without a college degree. He gets forced out in 81 for some ethical violations, but he leaves with a blueprint for what he's going to do next. And by 1987, he makes this really pivotal move to a firm called Towers Financial.
So what was this blueprint he was perfecting? Well, he had a name for it: financial doctoring. Now, this wasn't just your standard accounting. It was this bespoke, custom service for the ultra-wealthy. He built these incredibly complex, opaque financial shelters that did more than just dodge taxes. They literally made fortunes disappear from public view, shielding assets and guaranteeing total secrecy. This became his signature move. That financial doctoring definitely laid the groundwork, but two key pillars are what really built his fortune. And this is where the story shifts from just shady finances to something much, much darker. We're talking about a combination of outright fraud and the unbelievable favor of the elite.
Okay, so pillar number one was built at Towers Financial. You know what a Ponzi scheme is, right? It's that classic fraud where you pay off early investors with money you get from new ones. Well, his former partner there, Stephen Hoffenberg, who, by the way, went to prison for a $462 million scheme, called Epstein the mastermind behind the whole thing. And this right here, it's the perfect example of his early strategy. Despite his alleged central role in what was, at the time, one of the biggest frauds in U.S. history, Epstein was never charged. Reports suggest that the money from that very scheme became the seed capital for his own private firm. So he walks away with millions, and maybe more importantly, with what looks like total immunity.
Now, the second pillar, and you could argue it's the most important one, was his relationship with Leslie Wexner, the billionaire founder of L Brands. The amount of trust here is just mind-blowing. Wexner gave Epstein full power of attorney. That's a legal tool that grants someone total control over your money. He basically handed Epstein the keys to his billion-dollar kingdom. And in return, Epstein didn't just get cash, he got what sources call an imprimatur of respectability. Oh, and as if that wasn't enough, Wexner also just gave him that $77 million Manhattan mansion for free.
And, you know, when you actually look at his business, you realize it wasn't some diverse roster of powerful clients. Not at all. The financial records are stunningly clear. Between 1999 and 2018, a massive 75% of the nearly $500 million he made in fees came from just two guys, Leslie Wexner and the billionaire Leon Black. So, with a fortune built on fraud and favor, Epstein wasn't chasing money anymore. Instead, he started using that money to buy his most valuable asset, influence. He began to build this incredible web that would eventually pull in some of the most powerful people on the entire planet.
Let's start with a name that everybody knows. Based on the source documents, there is verifiable contact between Epstein and Donald Trump. This was a relationship that went back to the late 1980s, really centered on those elite social scenes in Palm Beach and Manhattan.
The documented interactions, they're pretty revealing. You've got NBC footage from a party at Mar-a-Lago in 1992. There's witness testimony about a private calendar girl competition held for the two men in 93. Then you have unsealed flight logs that show Trump flew on Epstein's private jet at least 7 times between 93 and 97. And this one's crucial. Court testimony indicates that Virginia Goffray was first recruited into Epstein's network while she was working at the Mar-a-Lago Spa back in 2000.
All right, next up, the records show a pretty significant association with former President Bill Clinton. And this relationship kind of splits into two different phases. You have official access while he was president, and then humanitarian travel after he left office. And the facts here are pretty striking. White House visitor logs show Epstein visited at least 17 times early in Clinton's presidency. After leaving office, flight logs confirm Clinton took at least 26 separate flights on Epstein's jet for trips related to the Clinton Foundation. Now, it's really important to note that while the connection is clear, the source records show no verifiable evidence that Clinton ever went to Epstein's private island. And then there's the truly bizarre discovery. A portrait of Bill Clinton in a blue dress and red heels was found hanging in Epstein's Manhattan townhouse. Okay, and the final case study we're going to look at here involves Bill Gates. Now, their relationship began in 2011. That's years after Epstein's first conviction for sex crimes down in Florida, a fact that reportedly caused a lot of tension in Gates's marriage. And this relationship allegedly took a really sinister turn toward blackmail. So according to investigative reporting, here's how it went down. After Gates decided not to join a charity fund Epstein was putting together, Epstein sends him this threatening email in 2017. The email brought up an affair Gates had with a Russian bridge player and demanded that Gates reimburse Epstein for her tuition, which Epstein had paid. I mean, the message was seen as a pretty clear threat to expose the affair.
So all of this brings us to the final chapter, to right now, where the secrets of this entire network are finally, slowly, beginning to spill out into the open, all thanks to thousands of documents being unsealed. In early 2024, thousands of pages of court documents that had been sealed for years were finally made public. And this was just a treasure trove of private emails, photos, and flight logs that added a ton of new detail to the public record. And some sources are even claiming that as many as 33,000 pages of records could eventually be released. And inside those files, wow, some truly chilling statements. In an email from August 2018 to a former White House counsel, Epstein himself wrote, quote, "I know how dirty Donald is." In another, he bragged he was the one able to take him down, basically implying he had compromising material on a sitting U.S. president. Which really leaves us with this one final lingering question. You see, the story of Jeffrey Epstein isn't just about the crimes of one man. It's about the entire system of power and influence that protected him and let it all happen. So as more of these files are unsealed, what other secrets and what other names will finally be brought into the light?